When God works behind the scenes, we don't always know what to do with unfinished places. We stand in the middle of something half-formed, half-repaired, half-understood, and we look around and wonder if any of it matters. The people who returned from exile knew exactly how that felt. They stepped back into their homeland and found more rubble than city, more dust than structure, more silence than hope. They laid a foundation for the temple, stepped back to catch their breath, and realized just how small they were, just how heavy all of this felt, just how far from finished things seemed. In that moment, the discouragement settled like evening fog. Nothing looked the way they imagined. Nothing was as powerful or triumphant as they wanted. Their story, which had once been full of promise and covenant and kings, now felt like a faint echo of what used to be. We've been in that place too, haven't we? The moment when we don't know how anything will come together, when all our effort feels too little and all our strength feels too thin. We look around at the rubble of what used to be and find ourselves whispering the same quiet question the remnant asked: is God really in this anymore? That's where Zechariah enters, not with explanations, but with visions that open windows we didn't know were there, not to confuse us, but to show us what the people standing in the dust could not see. Return to me, says the Lord of hosts, and I will return to you. Zechariah 1:3. Those words are not a demand, they are an invitation. They carry the gentle reassurance of a God who is already near, already moving, already working behind the rubble. This is a God who does not wait for us to understand before he acts. This is a God who begins the restoration long before we can see the shape of it. The visions start quietly, almost softly. Horsemen come back from patrolling the earth. They bring a report of what God already knows. A man holds a measuring line, stretching it out over Jerusalem, as if God himself is surveying what will be. Joshua stands before the Lord, filthy and accused, and instead of being cast aside, he is cleansed and clothed and restored. Zerubbabel looks at a mountain of stones he doesn't know how to lift, and God whispers a truth that cuts through the heaviness like dawn. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Zechariah 4:6. We watch these scenes unfold not to decode them, but to feel them. God is active in the places we assume are still. God is building where we see nothing but debris. God is restoring even when we feel paralyzed by what is undone. And then in the midst of all the visions and symbols, God says something so tender it almost feels out of place. For he who touches you touches the apple of his eye. Zechariah 2:8. This isn't distant, apocalyptic language. This is personal. This is the God of heaven revealing the longing of his heart. He guards what he loves. He watches over what is vulnerable. He holds close what the world has battered and worn thin. And he wants his people to know that even in the dust, even in the unfinished, even in the moments when they feel small, he has not looked away. And suddenly the visions feel less like mysteries and more like reassurances. Reminders that God's eyes are not scanning the horizon for perfection, but resting tenderly upon his people. And just when the people think the story is shrinking, God widens it in a way no one standing in rubble could ever predict. And many nations shall join themselves to the Lord in that day, and shall be my people. And I will dwell in your midst. Zechariah 2:11. The people see ruins. God sees a gathering. The people see a small remnant. God sees a day when nations stream toward his presence. The people imagine a barely functioning city. God imagines a dwelling place where his glory rests and his presence draws hearts home. Nothing in Zechariah is small, not because the people are strong, but because God is. Restoration does not depend on who they are, it depends on who God is. And Zechariah keeps showing us that God steps into every gap we cannot fill. We even see a priest crowned, not to replace a king, but to hint that God himself can unite what we shattered and could never repair. Leaders fail, and God says he will shepherd his people himself. Nations rage, and God says he will defend. People scatter, and God says something so gentle it almost breaks us open. I will whistle for them and gather them in, for I have redeemed them. Zechariah 10:8. That is not a distant God. That is a near God. That is a God who knows every voice and follows every wandering step. That is a God who never loses track of us. We never slip through the cracks of his fingers, not when we feel weak, not when we feel lost, not when we stand in the middle of our own unfinished story. And by the time the book draws us toward the end, something shifts inside us. The rubble doesn't magically disappear. The work isn't suddenly easy. The road isn't instantly smooth. But we see the truth that had been there all along. God was moving first. God was acting before the people returned. God was working while they were still doubting. God was building when they saw nothing changing. God was restoring before they lifted a single stone. And suddenly the invitation makes sense. Return to me, and I will return to you. Not because he was absent, not because he stepped away, not because he needed us to figure it out first, but because when we turn toward him, we finally notice what he has been doing behind the scenes the whole time. We walk through unfinished places differently when we know God has already begun the restoration. We breathe differently. We trust differently. We hope differently. Because the God who spoke into the ruins of Jerusalem is the same God who speaks into the ruins of our own lives and says, I am here, I am working, and I am not finished with you yet. As you sit with Zechariah's message today, take a moment to linger in the places of your life that still feel half-built or unfinished. Where might discouragement have convinced us that God has stepped back, when in reality he has already been moving behind the scenes? Where might he be inviting us to return, not because we have figured everything out, but because he has been drawing near long before we even noticed? And where might trust begin to grow again, not from certainty, but from resting in the God who sees, gathers, restores, and completes what we cannot? If you're willing, share your reflections or questions in the comments, not because you need polished answers, but because walking honestly together helps us see the quiet ways God may still be working in our midst.